Hi. I got a new setup for doing these videos now where I don't have to sit in my recliner to do them. But I'd like to tell y'all a story about an incident that happened many years ago when my youngest son was quite young. And uh, to give you some background on him, he was born with some really serious heart problems. He had lots of defects. He was missing one of the valves in his heart, namely the tricuspid valve. They called it tricuspid atresia for those that know anything about these things. Also, two of the larger vessels were transposed, switched, whatever you want to call it. And there were two holes in the dividing chambers of his heart. They call them septal defects, I believe. Um, and in any case, um, he was facing a lot of surgeries and treatments and all kinds of things in his life. And first of all, without the surgery he had when he was like 8 months old, he wouldn't make it to five or so. And then when he turned five, they did another one. And later on, they did another one, all that stuff. But first of all, the second big surgery was coming up pretty quick. One of his cousins, uh, their baby, uh, passed from SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, crib death, they used to call it. Um, and I went with the baby's grandfather to a town in Oklahoma where the baby was to be interred near his grandmother. Um, After the service was over, they had a graveside service for the baby. I went over and was walking around the cemetery by myself, and I saw uh, an area where they had uh, like newborn babies, toddlers, young children. Uh, they were kind of by themselves over in this one area of the cemetery. And I was sitting there and I was looking at the dates on the stones and things, and I was thinking my youngest son could be here pretty soon, you know, in a cemetery. And I was quite concerned. Well, back in those days, I wasn't a Christian, so I was worried. And but I heard a voice that sounded just like somebody from just a few feet away speaking to me. It said, "He's going to be okay." And I looked around, and there's nobody within 40 or 50 yards of me. And it took me a while to figure out where that voice could have come from. Like I said, I wasn't a Christian, and people will tell you that God does not speak to non Christians. I have proof right here in this one incident that that's not true. This is in Acts chapter 8. It's where it starts. And Saul was consenting unto his death. This is talking about Stephen. And at that time there was a great persecution against the church which was at Jerusalem, and they were all scattered abroad throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. And devout men carried Stephen to his burial and made great lamentation over him. As for Saul, he made havoc of the church, entering into every house and hailing men and women, committed them to prison. So I'm guessing you can probably figure out from that, just like I did, that Saul was not a Christian. But uh, over here in chapter 9 of Acts, it says, "And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest, and desired of him letters to Damascus to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way," which is Christians, "whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus, whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise, and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. I heard that voice, and I saw no man. And I'm going to tell you something. Once you figure out where that voice came from, just like Saul was pretty shook up, and he should have been, just like I was. I wasn't cognizant of in any way what was going on at the time, because like I say, I wasn't a Christian. And so it's pretty scary, to be honest with you. But then after you figure it out, you learn that you need to heed that voice. You need to listen to what that voice is saying and believe. As the song says, trust and obey. When you get these words, revelations, whatever from God, you need to listen. And God may tell you something very simple to do. You get that still small voice, or small still voice, however you want to phrase it. Like sometimes I get a word to give somebody a few dollars, or buy them a Happy Meal from McDonald's or whatever. And when I do that, it's only because God told me to. It's not because Johnny's a sweet, swell guy. I like to think I am, but that's not why I do it. I only do those things when God tells me to, because I know how some people are. If you give a drug addict money, he's probably not going to spend that on food. He's probably going to go buy him some more drugs. And so I'm not going to do that just of myself. When God tells me to, however, I have to do it. That's my job. We all have a job. A lot of that job is witnessing, telling people your testimony, which is what I'm doing here today. Because that incident that I'm talking about brought me to God. I didn't just wake up one morning and go, I think I'll be a Christian today. God brought me to that point. And he will use things in your life to get you to him too. Some people actually do come to God while they're in jail or prison. It's not what is commonly referred to as jailhouse religion, which is where, oh yes, I'm a good Christian, I go to Bible study and blah, 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 blah. And 10 minutes after they get out, they want to go get a beer, they want to go get some dope, whatever. It's the actual deal, like that woman that was executed in Texas a few years ago. She was involved in and helped murder a man in Houston, I believe it was. And when she was interviewed not long before her execution, this person said, "Well, since you're a Christian now, don't you think they should just let you go?" And she looked at her, she said, "Lady, you're crazy. I killed a man with a pickaxe. I don't need to be let go. I don't I don't need to be turned loose on the public." She said, "I don't deserve that. Now, if my death sentence is commuted," which it wasn't, um, "I can stay in here and I can witness to people and I can uh, maybe change some people's lives for them." And she said, "But if I do get executed, I'm going to go to sleep on that table, but I'm going to wake up in heaven." That's how you know when somebody's got the real deal. They're not just pulling your leg or hoping to look good to the public or the parole board or whatever. It's the real deal. And when God tells you to do something, you need to do it. It's real simple. And after a while, you will get to where you recognize that voice. It doesn't have to be a loud voice, just like I was just describing here. You get it now. It seems like it goes from my heart up to my head instead of out into this ear. So learn to recognize that voice. Jesus said, "My sheep know my voice." You'll get to learn it too if you stay in the will of God. I love y'all. We'll see you next time.